Okay, class. So we're going to look at another chapter here now. The topic here is work teams and groups. So let's look at this, and this is also going to be split into two parts, just for the sake of how much time or what we have to cover. So first, a group is two or more people with a common interest or purpose or objective, and a team is something like that, but it's a little bit more integrated. Okay, a group of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common mission, performance goals, and approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. What does that mean? A group can be kind of a loose group of people that are interested in something, but a team works together intimately. A basketball team is different than a group of people who happen to show up and, maybe they're interested in basketball or maybe they're not. What does a good, well-functioning group look like? Well, generally, it might be relaxed, comfortable, informal atmosphere. They're kind of together. They're comfortable together. The task is well understood. They don't know. I mean, they didn't just show up to the park. They're there to play basketball, right? I mean, members listen well and participate. They express feelings and ideas. Okay. There's more to it. That conflict and disagreement center around ideas, not personalities, or I just don't like that other person or whatever. They're aware of their operation. There's consensus and decision making more often than not, and there's clear assignments. They know what they're all about. They know what they're supposed to be doing. Now, group behavior. I want to talk about norms of behavior and group cohesion. So norms of behavior are the standards. Okay, norms mean standards of work that the work group uses to evaluate whether they're on track or whether they're off track. Okay, so each group will form slightly different standards. They're going to work together in a way that they're comfortable with in order to accomplish their task. Group cohesion is the interpersonal glue that makes members of a group stick together. What does that mean? It means that they kind of like each other, that they're kind of pulling the same direction, that they're working on the same tasks, that kind of thing. Okay? Now, there's also the opposite of that. Not the social glue, but the opposite. Social loafing. Social loafing is awful. Okay? The failure of a group member to contribute personal time, effort, thoughts, and other resources to the group. So in poorly structured group tasks, what you have sometimes is a couple of people are doing all the heavy lifting, pulling everybody's weight, and then there's other people that are just kind of going along for the ride and maybe getting the same grade, but they're not really contributing much. That's not good. There's another problem potentially, and that is the loss of individuality. That means that the individual group members lose self-awareness and its accompanying sense of accountability, inhibition, and responsibility. Now, in one way, it's kind of good because they're kind of becoming. So there's a philosopher, Jonathan Haidt, who talks about hivishness, like beehive, right? They're becoming part of that group, but they're also at the same time losing that accountability, and very bad things can happen in that process. Okay, so 3 issues addressed by groups. Interpersonal issues, those are things like trust and personal comfort, security. Okay, and then there's task issues, which what are we here for? What's our purpose? And then finally, authority issues such as leadership or who's in charge or who's going to do what, or accountability and communication. There are formal groups and informal groups. Formal groups are just set up very clearly by the organization. Informal groups are not. They just kind of grow organically. You don't need to know much more than that. Stages of group formation. The first one, you get in and you're trying to figure out who's who, and there's mutual acceptance, and you're starting to learn who's good at things. What the emphasis is on relationship, and then you move to decision making, and the emphasis is on task, and then you move to motivation and commitment, and you start to really look toward how do you accomplish those tasks, and then finally control to make sure that it's on track. That's one way of organizing and thinking through the stages of group formation. The more common way, or the one that's in almost every textbook, is going to be what you see next, and that's Tuchman's 5-stage model of group development, which moves from forming, and in the forming stage, we don't really know each other. We're trying to understand what the task's about, who each other are, those kind of things. And then you move to storming, which is it looks like a weird phase. It looks like, well, why are we kind of, I mean, it gets worse. Conflict increases. There's power struggles. People are trying to vie for or jockey for position. But if you don't go through that storming phase, you'll never really get to norming because you'll constantly continue storming. So you go through this process, work those kind of things out, and then you get to kind of an agreement about what you're all about, and then you can move forward. From norming, you go to performing, where you're actually on task, you're working toward your goal, and then finally you're adjourning and you're completing it. Now, when you get from forming to storming to norming to performing to adjourning, when you can tell whether you had a good group experience, because at the end of adjourning, when you're done with this task, you're kind of like, it's a little bit bittersweet. You're, oh, I'm kind of sad to see the group disband. If you're like, woo, good riddance, I'm glad that we're done with this, you had a bad group. Okay, so that's how you can kind of tell. Okay, groups do not progress linearly. That is, they don't just keep going on the same trajectory all the way up. They don't just keep going, getting better all the time. It doesn't work that way. There's kind of, sometimes you're doing well, and then sometimes you're just really not, and you tend to plateau, and then there's a big burst, and then you plateau, and then and this is called punctuated equilibrium. Okay, so it's not always making progress. Mature groups have certain characteristics like group cohesion, okay, and that is that attraction that's binding group members together, okay, group cohesion, and that's a good thing generally. It can also cause some problems, but it enables the group to exercise control over members. I mean, if everybody in the group kind of likes the group and likes the group norms and each other, well, it helps them rein each other in. From norms that are outside the normal group. A mature group is going to demonstrate lower tension and anxiety. They will demonstrate less variation in productivity. They'll demonstrate better member satisfaction, commitment, and communication. So as the group gets used to each other and is comfortable over a longer period of time, they're going to start to take on certain characteristics that they get used to each other, and they know how to pull together and work together. Okay, team task functions. Task functions are those activities directly related to effective completion of the team's work. What is the team there to do? Let's take that basketball team again. They're there to play basketball and win. Those are the task functions. And so in an organization, it would look like coordinating activities and diagnosing problems and seeking information and testing ideas and summarizing the ideas, right? That's all team task skills. Now, there's also maintenance functions. Maintenance, so task and relationship. Just hear the word relationship when you see maintenance here. Okay, just like the Ohio State studies or Michigan studies when you're dealing with relationship, it's the same kind of thing. Maintenance functions are those essential to effective, satisfying interpersonal relationships. Okay, so if the team, let's go back to a basketball team, if the team can't get along with each other and doesn't really like each other, they're not going to function well. So you have the task and you have the maintenance function, and the maintenance functions are things like supporting others and gatekeeping communication and reducing tension and setting standards and harmonizing conflicts. Works on a basketball court, works in an organization. It's the same kind of stuff. Okay, so again, there's the task side, there's the relationship side. Both have to be there for an effective team to function. Okay, that's part one. Please look at part two before you go on to your tests.